Hello, good afternoon to everybody at VCCP and anybody else who's watching. This is the latest in the series of Curious Plus Talks, part of the Thrive at Home program. If you want to take part in the program yourself, we are looking for contributors. If you've got something you'd like to talk about, do get in touch with the thriveathome@vccp.com email address, and we'll help you sort out a presentation that you can do yourself. But I'm going to talk today about 5 tech and culture trends that are being accelerated by COVID-19. This is something that I wasn't planning to do this, but it came up I keep so many notes and bookmarks of everything, and soon I started to see some patterns emerging. So I thought I'd put them down into a presentation. These are by no means the only things that are happening. There's a lot more going on, but these are 5 things that I particularly noticed. The reason that there's so much happening at the moment is because this lockdown, the quarantine lockdown, is basically putting everybody into a huge public experiment, which means that people have to at least try things they would often have dismissed before. That includes grocery shopping, that includes video chat. There's so many things that people now, because they're separated, they're isolated from their friends and family, they need to be trying things new. So there's a lot of experimentation going on. Some of it will stick, some of it won't. But I'm going to look at, as I said, 5 other things that I particularly noticed. Those 5 things are eSports, virtual art and culture, digital identity, live-streamed commerce, and telemedicine. Let's kick off with eSports. So obviously, sports are one of the live events that attract the biggest crowds. They're very physical, so they have high risk of infection. So there's no live sports going on anywhere at the moment. A few countries have started up a program of live sports again, or thinking of going back to a program of live sports, but they still won't be able to have public audiences there to watch them. So a few of them have come up with some quite interesting workarounds for this. The Rakuten Monkeys in Japan, they're a baseball team, I believe. They're using a mixture of cardboard cutouts and robot mannequins to be their crowds. And Borussia Mönchengladbach in Germany, they've got a fan program going where fans can take pictures of themselves, which are printed out into cardboard cutouts and placed into the stadiums in their seats for when the games come back to life. But really, while there's no live sport going on, what's happening in its place is eSports, so games which simulate the real sports. For example, Sky at the moment are showing the Premier League or English Football League invitational match, where they're using the EA Sports FIFA 2020 game, and they're getting a mix of professional eSports players and professional football players to play against each other using FIFA. These are being broadcast on Twitch and on YouTube, and then the finals are going to be broadcast on Sky Sports on television. I recommend, if you're a football fan, you have a look at these. There's a particularly tasty looking match this afternoon between Raheem Sterling and Wilfried Zaha. But it's not just football, it's every sport. Formula One have launched a virtual Grand Prix series where they are again using a mix of professional esports players and actual sport players. Coca-Cola have sponsored the latest series of NASCAR. NASCAR have actually had an e-NASCAR gaming competition for a few years, but this is by far their biggest yet, and it's being broadcast on NBSCN in the US. What's interesting about Formula One and NASCAR is that really the game versions are, because of the graphical power and the engines in these games nowadays, are basically, if you're watching them on a screen, they're kind of indistinguishable from the actual sport itself. So this is something that NASCAR's been running for a while. I can imagine Grand Prix Formula One doing this for a little while yet to come as well. Then in the US, you've got the NBA tournament, which is, again, mixture of actual, mostly professional players playing against each other. That's being shown on ESPN. And taking it a step further, the Finnish Hockey League are actually using NHL 20 game to decide the results of their unfinished season this year. So that all the teams have played against each other up to now, they're going to settle the playoff places by playing in NHL 20 instead of running the actual games. 7% of people, according to a survey, who didn't previously engage in esports now say they're watching it. 7% might not sound like a lot, but that's an increase in the global esports audience of about 27%, which is really big. And ESPN, a couple of weeks ago on a Sunday, they showed 12 hours of esports on their channel, and it's something they expect to be doing it again. So this is something where you can see this necessity, this whole structure that's been set up for live sports is now being put to use. They need to fill the time, so they're putting it to use by showing esports instead. Why wouldn't this just stop when all the sports start up again? Because we're starting to see the kind of ecosystem arriving around it as well. Esports is actually continuing to attract advertisers, even as other categories are not advertising anymore. So you've got advertisers and marketing money in place. Nevada Sporting Association, or the Nevada Gambling Association, approved wagering on esports this week. They rushed that through in about 4 days, something like this, very, very quickly. So you've got marketing, you've got gambling, and you've got match fixing going on as well. So where there's marketing, where there's gambling, and where there's criminality, you've got a sustainable ecosystem for the future. And the really interesting about this thing is that it kind of legitimizes the category in the eyes of millions of real sports fans and advertisers. And a lot of these have resisted esports for years, but have got no choice now. You either embrace it or disengage from it entirely. And of course, as COVID subsides, esports fervor will probably drop a little bit, ratings will drop a little bit, and revenues will probably drop a little bit. However, it will have grown the category overall. It's been popularized and legitimized, and in 2020, 2021, and 2022, forever after that, there will be much more activity in this space, more funding, more viewership, and better distribution. Secondly, virtual art and culture. Now, this year's Basel Art Fest, Art Basel, has moved entirely online. Now, they were already planning to do this. This has already taken place. They'd already planned to have online viewing rooms. It's something they did last year as well. But this time they've really pushed it to another level. They've moved the entire thing online. Last year at Hong Kong, they had online viewing rooms, but then they still had a physical art fair. This year in March, it was 5 days in March, they ran the entire thing online. And the global director of Art Basel said it became clear as we looked at it as this was something we needed to accelerate and expand. So those existing plans have just been pushed through and pushed up to the maximum, and to have an entirely digital art fair for the first time. And it was huge. There was 235 exhibitors showing a total of 2,000 works with a sale value of about £216 million. And in those 5 days, there were 250,000 visitors to the art room, to the online art rooms. Now, to put that in context, Art Basel in Hong Kong last year had 88,000 visitors in total. So a huge bump in the number of people watching it. And it worked. You know, there was lots of sales happening. This was the biggest sale. Marlene Dumas, her work, like Don Quixote, sold for £2.1 million entirely through this online viewing space. Now, pre-sales and digital sales already happened in art. This is not something entirely new. People are used to this, but it's definitely been accelerated. Other art galleries, meanwhile, have gone fully virtual. This is Massimo De Carlo, who has galleries in Milan and London and Hong Kong, obviously 3 places very hard hit by coronavirus. So his organization has moved to create an entirely virtual space. This is their first exhibit by the artists John Armleder and Rob Pruitt. This is for virtual reality headsets and in your browser. The entire gallery space with all the artworks have been digitized and moved online so that people can take a look at them, walk around, view them, and potentially buy them. And the Hauser and Wirth gallery, they were due to open a new physical gallery space in Menorca in 2021. They've obviously seen that this may not happen as they wanted it to, so they're building a preview. Again, they had this in the works already, a system called Art Lab, but they've accelerated this. They've built an entirely digital replica of their physical gallery, which is not yet opened, which you can move into and walk around and look around. This picture that you're seeing is not a photograph, that's a screenshot of their virtual lab because it has outdoor spaces and indoor spaces. So you can walk around and see these beautifully curated works without having to need to fly there or to visit it physically. A lot of VR exhibitions were kind of set up in physical spaces and then a lot of exhibitions were set up in physical spaces and then photographed to be displayed in VR afterwards in the last few years. But this is now the other way around. It's virtual first with the physical to follow in a couple of years. But there's another way that people can view art, and that's to view it in their own spaces as well, not a virtual space, but in their physical spaces. And so augmented reality is something that's happening to art quite quickly as well. This is the Lisson Gallery, and again, this was a plan they already had in place, but they thought, well, we need to make this happen now, so we fast-tracked development. We decided to make the technology available to everyone because most of the galleries are closed during the current global pandemic. And so with augmented reality art, it's very easy, it's very simple to position a sculpture or an installation or a painting in your own space in augmented reality, and then take photographs of it and share it. So you can view art, you can share art at a time when people can't travel and they're trying to reduce costs and trying to reduce their logistical burdens. And another couple of sites and apps doing the same thing. There's a website called All World, which was set up fairly recently and has suddenly seen an influx of new artists. That lets you preview the artworks in your own space. You can see my living room there. And then buy the artworks, buy a digital copy of the artworks or the rights to access a digital copy of the artwork from the artists. And Acute Art is doing the same. They're starting with an artist called KAWS, Cause. It's really interesting, it's kind of the democratization of art and the democratization of art galleries. Now you can curate and mount your own art shows in your own space. And you can pay to rent or to have digital access rights to artworks, which is really interesting when you think about the nature of ownership of art. Right now, the art always belongs to the artist, and everybody, hopefully, if the gallery allows, can go along and take photographs of it and share the photographs. This is kind of cutting out that middleman of requiring the physical space to visit in the first place. And it's been a big success for them, Acute Art. And I said, Daniel Birnbaum, who's the founder, he said, in the middle of a total global crisis when every museum and public art institution in the world closed down and no one can travel, we launched a blockbuster. And again, this is not new. This is something that people have been doing for a while. Google Arts and Culture, you can download their app or visit the website. They've been doing AR art exhibitions for a little while. You can preview artworks in your own house to get up and walk around and take a good close look at them. Or they have this really nice, what's called the Doll's House view of art galleries, which are curated exhibitions. You can view them, walk around them, move around them, and then zoom inside and walk through these spaces and view the artworks up close. So it's mixing the kind of curated gallery experience with the ability to not have to be physically present. Jia Jiafei from the Jewish Museum in New York, she says, before COVID-19, the digital space was almost treated as an afterthought for expanding an audience beyond the reach of physical spaces. But now that physical spaces are no longer the priority, the cultural sector is rushing to adapt events, exhibitions, and experiences for an entirely digital-first audience. For digital innovators, this is the moment to push the limit of our creative and technical vision and a chance to experiment. For everyone else, it's a crash course in digital marketing triage. Put that more simply by Mark Glimpsher of Pace Gallery, he just says, this is just the beginning of a new era of experiencing art through digital realms. Another way that art is being pushed into digital realms, which you may have read about recently, is through Animal Crossing, which is Nintendo's huge breakout social game. Seems like everybody's playing it this summer. Maybe it's just the people that I follow on Twitter. But the Getty Gallery, they made all of their artworks that they have the rights available in Animal Crossing, so that you can mount them in your homes and spaces and invite people in to take a walk around and look at them, which is another really interesting way of democratizing art and getting it out to more people. I'm going to stay on Animal Crossing for a second as I talk a little bit about digital identity. Animal Crossing, as I said, has been kind of the breakout cultural hit, virtual hit of the lockdown period, with people going on date nights, throwing surprise birthday parties, even holding wedding parties within the game itself. This is partly like fantasy and distraction, but it's not entirely about that. Really, it's like the desperate need to have control over something. You might not be able to control what's going on in the world outside you, but you definitely can control who you invite into your worlds, what you curate there, what you present there. So this is a really interesting, Animal Crossing is not the only space where this is happening. There's Fortnites and lots of things like that. Animal Crossing is just the focus of all the headlines at the moment. Another example of people using these spaces is in Final Fantasy Online. This is a really nice and quite touching moment. there was a group of gamers in Final Fantasy, and 2 of their friends actually died from coronavirus in the real world, obviously. And so a group of players got together and held a memorial procession for them within the game. So it's beautiful to see these communities. These are, think of them less as games and more of kind of really focused micro niche online communities, because that's what's happening here. Yeah, and it's really a hint of what's to come. People are saying Animal Crossing is the new social media, but in fact it's a little bit bigger than that. It's kind of, there's a thing called the metaverse or the mirror world or whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of different names for it out there, but it's being talked about a lot as the next version of the internet, the next big software platform. And games like Animal Crossing and Fortnite and Final Fantasy and all of these things are little hints of what to come. It's a bet that not only will our lives be held increasingly more and more online, but our existence and our jobs will be too, at least for the near future. And so one of the most significant impacts of COVID-19 is likely to be how it helps destigmatize virtual existence. These micro niche communities kind of might have been sneered at or frowned upon before, but now with people having to spend more time online, they are spending more time online in these spaces, and so it's kind of removed some of the stigma from that. If people are doing video calling and social gaming and all of these things, it's no longer a kind of, for want of a better term, a nerd occupation. And in these spaces, people want to express identity. And so lots of people, lots of brands, the savvy brands, are giving them the opportunity to do this. Net-a-Porter released a whole load of digital outfits into Animal Crossing, as you can see in the picture here, so that gamers could use outfits from Net-a-Porter from big brands and try them on and experiment with them and swap them with their friends. 100 Thieves, which is a big eSports related casual wear brand, they also released their entire back catalogue of physical apparel into Animal Crossing for people to download and use on their characters. And again, this is being noticed in the wider press. It's becoming a place where people express identity much more than, well, of course not much more, but you know, as a growing sector, much more than social media. And people are spending a long time expressing their identity, because when you spend so much time online, your identity online is just as important to you as your identity offline. And this is a change that fashion's been going through already anyway. Again, none of this is new. These are accelerated trends. For a little while now, people have been talking about digital fashion. That is fashion that's designed digitally, that's distributed digitally, that's even used digitally. And so there's a lot of change going on in this sector, because the online revenue for apparel is down 11% year on year. These are US figures, while overall online revenue is up 50%. People are spending more online, but they're buying a lot less apparel and clothing. Whereas digital fashion apps like Forma, which is an app where you can try on outfits digitally, that's seeing a doubling of new users per week. And Dressed, which is a fashion gaming app where you can collect outfits from real designers and put them onto a digital avatar, that's seen a 50% increase in installs week on week as well during the same period. And you know, fashion is already heading in this direction. Helsinki Fashion Week this year was already going to be digital. They were going to be running it entirely digital already. So this is just, you know, they were prepared for this. And Tommy Hilfiger has spent the last 4 or 5 years prepping its entire operation to go digital. So they design with digital, they test the fabrics in digital. It saves a lot of wastage. So they have all these things ready if they want to start pushing out into more digital materials through virtual fashion. And this, because the supply chain is so messed up at the moment, I think this is something that's going to be pushed through a lot faster because of the impact of the coronavirus. So yeah, people want to express a deeper sense of identity online because they're spending so much time online. And I think this is going to be the catalyst for people to be more open to the idea of a digital wardrobe. Clothes that your avatars wear, clothes that are digitally added to you to wear expressly for social media, clothes that are tried on digitally before ordering physically. All of these things are changes that are being accelerated and pushed through. Slight change of tack. I want to talk a little bit about live stream commerce now. Now, social commerce, which is, if we define it, it's buying goods through social media channels, is a huge and well-established sector in China already. If you take a look at this graph here, we've got social commerce on the left-hand side. You can see as many people say they shop daily through social commerce as they do through physical stores. And social commerce is more popular for weekly and twice weekly purchases than mobile websites. So it's a sector that's already holding its own, and it's set to expand even more. And the next iteration of social commerce is live stream commerce. Essentially, people doing live streams, showing off goods and selling them to you directly. So you can buy as the person's talking to you, you can ask questions, you can get replies. And this is a category that's really only existed for about 2 or 3 years. 3 or 4 years, but it's already grown from almost nothing in 2017 to a predicted more than 100 billion pounds in market in China alone this year. And COVID-19 has accelerated this. Taobao, which is one of the biggest selling platforms in China, the simple comparison is Amazon, but it's much bigger than that. Taobao has seen a 720% increase in first-time live streamers between January and February this year, and this is already the leader in the market. So this is not a small this is not a small change; it's huge. And Douyin, which is the Chinese TikTok, has seen about almost 30% of traffic has come up from live streaming, which is a 4 percentile increase since the month before. And it's not just clothes and small items and consumer goods that get sold. Increasingly, it's becoming they're more expensive items. At its peak a couple of weeks ago, there were 7,000 car-related live streaming sessions. So people selling cars or car accessories or rentals, anything like that. So that's a huge and growing market. And Via, who's one of the top live streamers, or the top live streamer in China at the moment, has started selling not only trips on a rocket or cargo space on a rocket, but also selling property deeds to a new development. And she sold 800 property deeds in a single selling session recently. Just yesterday, President Xi Jinping went on to the local, did a tour of rural China and into Shanxi village, where he inspected their live streaming capabilities. Live streaming e-commerce is seen as a huge thing for rural China, to bring rural China out of poverty, where people can directly sell their goods to more wealthy people in cities and people in towns all around them. So he toured this setup in Shanxi village. Because of his appearance on the news in this live stream, which was watched by about 20 million people, these people sold £340,000 worth of black fungus in one night, which is equivalent to 4 months of online sales last year. It's not taken off here yet. It's not really so big yet, but everything is moving into place for it to happen here. So Amazon are the biggest player to move in with Amazon Live. This is US only at the moment. And this is a very professional kind of almost QVC style of doing things. But Facebook, who obviously have the biggest video platforms in Instagram, IGTV, and Facebook itself, they acquired a startup called Packaged at the end of last year to build out their live shopping, so we can be confident that's coming this year. And TikTok is working on shoppable videos too. All the infrastructure is already in place in China, so it's really a case of just kind of making that infrastructure available here and creating the market. And that market is getting bigger. Live streaming viewership is up. Now, some of this is bumped up, of course, by there was a big game release last month, which kind of boosted the figures of this a little bit. But even then, you can see there's a big year-on-year increase. This is viewership figures for Twitch. So already, because of COVID-19 and the lockdown, people want to be entertained. They're watching more live streaming. But whereas Twitch started off as a live streaming gaming site, the biggest increase is actually in non-gaming or lifestyle streaming. So where the year-on-year growth kind of annually adjusted was about 4%, the year-on-year growth for lifestyle streaming was, or what they call just chatting streaming in Twitch, is up 15% last year. And just chatting can be anything. It can be people doing educational pieces, tutorials. It can literally be them just chatting. This is a guy called Byron Bernstein who goes under the name of Recful, and he recently did a live stream of him eating a load of vegetables. He's already got a big viewership because he's a big gaming streamer, but he just did this thing where people could watch him eating and talk to him eating, and he could kind of get his culture and personality across through this stream, and so that was a huge success as well. And this is something that's been coming. This is Google has flagged this increase of what they call with me videos. With me videos are the biggest category by far is get ready with me. So people trying on clothes, putting on makeup, all of these things, and pushing these videos out so that people can watch them and feel like they have some kind of relationship with the streamer. And that's increasing massively year on year. So this is already something that we're becoming comfortable with, but the actual implementation of turning this into commerce is not quite in place yet. At the moment, there's really just a handful of smaller businesses working in the space, doing virtual consultations or virtual concierge services. Hero is the one on the right that's doing one-to-one, so like literally a virtual consultation with somebody in store, in a Nike store, or they have an expert on trainers. You can ask them questions, you can get personalized recommendations. Or companies like Bambuza or Shops, which do the Chinese style live streaming video commerce. So these are becoming way more popular now. Deciem is a big cosmetics brand. I think they do the Abnormal Beauty Company. They're the parent company of Abnormal Beauty Company. They're rolling out Deciem at Home, which is launching on Monday next week, I think, via their website. They're going to be using Hero for that one. So you'll be able to book a one-to-one consultation with a cosmetic specialist who will ask you questions about your skin and your what you like and what you don't like, and we'll be giving this personalized experience of going into a store. As the founder of Deciem, or the CEO of Deciem, says, it's not possible to have in-person meetings right now, but human connection matters much more than ever. So Deciem at Home will be an online reflection of the human experience that people can get in store. So that's a massive opportunity, I think, for retail brands who can't have people in their stores at the moment that want to keep up that kind of culture of expertise and personalization. Finally, telemedicine. Now, staying healthy at home, again, this is something that people have been doing for a while through things like Peloton and Fit and all of these other brands. It's been accelerated, of course, now that everybody's stuck at home, with people like Joe Wicks. PE lessons kind of massively popular, at least for the first few weeks. I'm not sure if everybody's still doing them. But staying healthy is one thing. And the other aspect of that we probably don't think about so much is actually getting to see a healthcare professional. How can you go to your GP if your GP surgery is shut? So this is where telemedicine comes in. And the telemedicine is a field that's been around for a little while. What we mean by telemedicine is literally remote connection with your GP. It can be by text message, or increasingly right now it's being done by video chats. So this is US figures. So over half of US healthcare practitioners are now using telemedicine directly because of COVID-19. You can see on the other side, that's the number of US adults who are using the service from the other side. So that's seen a huge increase as well. So almost half of adults surveyed said they either have tried or intend to try telemedicine, which is up from just over a quarter as recently as 3 months ago. So huge demand from doctors wanting to do this, and huge demand from potential patients, people wanting to do this as well. Over here in the UK, it's been a phenomenal change. So in 2019, about 1% of appointments to primary care were made by video in 2019. Babylon Health, you probably remember seeing the ads for them. They were the first kind of telemedicine company officially approved by the NHS in the UK. But since the outbreak of COVID and the isolation, and people realizing that this was going to overwhelm GP surgeries, and they wanted to try and avoid that, and they wanted to try and not make people go there physically, the NHS ran a 48-hour tender to 11 companies in mid-March. I think they've awarded those, but they also said during that time that while we're waiting for these official tenders for companies to move into these spaces to do these types of things, doctors would be allowed to temporarily use Skype, WhatsApp, things like that. And one of the companies that I'm particularly interested in is a company called Accurix. Accurix are only 2 years old, but already from 1% of appointments by primary care last year, Accurix itself is responsible for about 35,000 video consultations every single day. And 90% of primary care providers in England are using Accurix. Now that's phenomenal for a company that didn't exist about 2 years ago. And it's really very simple. So Accurix was founded 2 years ago. It was originally just a messaging app between you and your doctor, or you and your GP, or you and your healthcare professional. Obviously they've seen the necessity to expand their service. So literally in the space of a weekend, they added video consultations in partnership with a company called Whereby. They've added the ability to add files and send files, confidential files between doctors and patients. So it's been an absolutely phenomenal change in the market. And it's a market that's been ripe for acceleration for a long time. People have been video calling for a while, but these kind of old habits of going to see your GP have not changed for a really, really long time. One doctor has come out and said that we're basically witnessing 10 years of change in 1 week. The changes to the way that people go and see their doctors, the pushes through of the new technology, the rapid responses from the NHS or NHSX. And I think many people held out from using online services because they were worried about them, or they just simply didn't feel the need to use them. But now they've been forced to use them, and they've seen that it can be easy and it can be useful. So when all of this is over, I think many people will go back to their old habits, but many people will stick to these new things as well. So all of these things which were happening gradually and slowly have been accelerated and will become business as usual for a lot of people going forward. So COVID-19 and the lockdown has not only helped destigmatize virtual life, it actually means probably that an extra generation of people who may not have been interested in it before will now begin to participate in it. That's all from me. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it very much, and hope everybody is well. Hope to see you all soon, and I will send around the slides and follow up on this very shortly. So that's it. Bye bye.